Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever looked at a newborn and just been, well, awestruck?
Absolutely. Every time.
How does this tiny being, fresh from the womb, already know so much?
Right. The instincts are immediate.
How does it latch and feed? How does its body develop with such incredible symmetry? It feels like the standard explanations, the DNA ones, they might be missing something big.
They really might be. And that's exactly what we're exploring in this deep dive. You've pulled together some truly fascinating sources that push right at the boundaries of how we understand human development.
Looking at it from the very start.
Exactly. From conception through that intense parent-child interaction phase, and even looking towards what this means for the future. And there's some really solid science, including the math, which is just wow.
You're definitely venturing beyond just the gene story here.
We are.
So we got this great collection of research, and our mission really is to pull out the most mind-blowing bits for everyone listening.
Cutting through the noise.
Exactly. To get at this revolutionary idea that how we develop, how we learn, what we inherit, it might be way more dynamic, more intricate than just the DNA instructions.
It's like asking, could DNA be just one vital part of a much, much bigger system?
That's the core question, isn't it?
It is, and it sparks this whole exploration. Because the standard model, while obviously correct about DNA being the instruction set, it kind of struggles with some basic things, like how do cells with the same DNA become so different? A neuron versus a skin cell.
Right, or the symmetry thing, how does that happen so perfectly?
And left versus right for our organs.
Yeah.
And why can, say, a salamander regrow a leg, but we mostly can't? It feels like something's missing.
Like having all the instruments for an orchestra? Perfectly made.
Yeah.
But no sheet music, no conductor. You've got the parts.
Yeah.
But what's directing the actual performance?
Precisely. A perfect analogy. And this is where the concept of the biofield starts to come in.
Okay, the biofield. Now, this term can sound a bit out there.
It can, I know. But let's ground it immediately. The sources you found emphasize it's a measurable, structured field.
Measurable how?
Through things like electromagnetic resonance, think of cells communicating via specific frequencies, like tuning forks, and voltage gradients.
Like electrical charge differences.
Exactly. Across cell membranes, acting as signals, ion flows, actual communication using photons, light particles, even how water is structured within our cells, and these quantum potentials underlying possibilities influencing things at a quantum level.
Okay, so definitely, as my notes say, not woo. Give me some solid examples. How does this show up in the real world, especially thinking about a developing child?
Okay, absolutely. This is where it gets really fascinating, especially with that early parent-child dynamic. Michael Levin's work.
With the tadpoles?
Yes.
Oh.
His team literally changed the shape of tadpole faces just by manipulating the electrical fields around the embryos.
Without changing genes?
Without touching the genes. Just the field. It shows how directly a field can shape physical form.
That's incredible.
Then there are those, well, intriguing but still studied cases. Heart transplant recipients may be picking up memories or traits.
I've heard about that. Suggests some kind of energetic transfer.
Potentially. And phantom limbs, feeling a limb that's gone. Could that be the persistent energetic field?
It makes you wonder.
These examples hint at information transfer happening beyond just chemicals.
So this biofield, it's not passive, it's actively shaping things. The sources call it a real-time 3D holographic scaffold.
Yeah, that paints a picture, doesn't it?
A dynamic template.
Imagine a constantly updating 3D blueprint guiding cells. And this leads to the idea of field imprinting, how we inherit information within this field.
Okay, field imprinting. Let's dig into that, especially with the parent-child connection. How does it start at conception?
Right, so fertilization happens, DNA emerges, obviously. But the egg itself, it already carries a highly structured biofield from the mother.
Yeah.
And what's called cytoplasmic memory info beyond the nuclear DNA. So the zygote gets a fused field, but with a really strong initial imprint from the mother's field, thanks to the egg structure and, well, the whole womb environment.
So the mother's field sets the initial stage.
Very much so. And crucially, this combined field immediately starts setting up the body axis head-tail, front-back, using these intricate electrical maps, gradients of voltage across the tiny embryo.
Electrical maps inside an embryo. That's wild. How do those maps guide things, and where does parental interaction fit in later?
Well, these bioelectric signals, they aren't static. They actively influence which genes get switched on or off, where directing cell differentiation.
So the field talks to the genes.
In a way, yes. And these morphogenetic fields, they seem to hold a memory of form, a template for the whole organism.
Like the planaria worms regenerating.
Exactly. The field remembers the whole shape. Cells can sense and align to these field signals, like iron filings near a magnet. And the memory is held in the field's dynamic geometry. As the embryo grows, fetus, child, the biofield keeps adapting, refining itself, like an evolving hologram.
Constantly updating.
And crucially, being influenced by energetic interactions, especially with the parents, both in the womb and after. The mother's biofield acts like a primary template and a constant information source.
That really shifts the perspective.
Yeah.
So what about those instincts? The newborn stuff, sucking, crying, recognizing faces. DNA alone feels thin.
This is a key place the biofield model offers something more. How does a newborn know all that? How does it heal?
Yeah.
The sources propose the biofield itself holds inherited memory, records of successful patterns passed down.
So instincts aren't just hardwired circuits.
Maybe not just that. They could be field memory, largely from the mother via the eggs field, then shaped further by that continuous energetic parent-child exchange pre- and post-birth.
The parental fields provide the initial template.
That's the idea. Especially the mother's field, influencing the infant's emerging field and behaviors.
Thinking about self-organization. Levin's xenobots come to mind again.
Oh, absolutely. They're a perfect illustration.
Frog cells just assembling themselves into new forms.
With novel behaviors, moving, self-healing, with no genetic programming for it. It strongly suggests cells have this biofield memory, this collective intelligence beyond their DNA code.
Okay, so it sounds like this biofield idea isn't about replacing DNA science.
Not at all.
It's like an essential layer that works with the genes, especially in that parent-child dynamic.
Precisely. It's a dual system. DNA is the foundation, the biochemical code. We don't dismiss that.
Right.
But the biofield is the guiding, organizing, integrating force, especially for something as complex and fast as human development, with all that energetic connection to the parents.
Because the standard model struggles with
The speed and precision of development, regeneration, variations in clones, those instincts, how the same DNA makes different cells.
Right. And this biofield upgrade involves what exactly? Electromagnetic, photonic fields.
Yes, and quantum coherent fields carrying patterned memory, inherited partly through genes but also through field entrainment.
Especially in the maternal environment.
Exactly. This field interacts with genes, modulates their expression. It's like a higher level control. Inherited via DNA and this field entrainment from fertilization through early interaction.
And each field is unique, but built on templates.
Yes, unique to the individual and their experiences, but based on species-wide, even ancestral, successful patterns.
So let's break down memory in the biofield step by step,
Yeah.
especially thinking about the child and parental influence. How does it work?
Okay. Step 1, fertilization. You get the DNA merge, the mechanical systems joining.
Right.
But also the merging of two biofields. And as we said, the mother's field seems dominant initially through womb entrainment. It helps set up the field geometry, polarity, early patterns.
And you can detect signals even then.
Yes, sensitive instruments pick up bioelectric gradients, even bursts of light biophotons, like an energetic signature.
The mother's biofield, providing the initial scaffold, the template. That sounds incredibly intimate.
It is. Then, as cells divide mitosis, it's the resonance in the biofield guiding tissue formation, morphogenesis.
Not just random division.
No, highly coordinated by the field's information. The field holds that form memory, an evolving map of the body to be.
Okay.
As development progresses, the field stabilizes through constant bioelectric signaling. Cells communicate instantly, share a distributed memory of location, function. It's cellular memory, partly encoded in these dynamic field patterns.
And this doesn't stop at birth.
Absolutely not. The biofield keeps adapting, shaped by ongoing interaction with parents, environment. Experiences, especially emotional ones, can leave resonance imprints,
Affecting the child's developing field.
potentially influencing health, behavior, even epigenetics for future generations via gene expression changes and further entrainment. Loving interaction fosters coherence. Stress or trauma could disrupt patterns.
That paints such a full picture. The parental impact at this fundamental level. So, if the biofield is guiding, what's DNA doing all this time?
Ah, critical point.
Yeah.
DNA is the stabilizer, the filter, the rate limiter, as one source puts it.
Keeping things coherent.
Yes, preventing chaos. Think of it like firmware or a circuit breaker, locking in successful field matter configurations.
So DNA has the building blocks.
And the capacity for proteins, yes. But The biofield provides the higher-level organization, especially in development, and that parent-child energy exchange. DNA preserves the successful blueprints guided by the field.
It's not the master architect.
More like the protocol layer.
This makes me think about, well, the nature of life itself. The sources mention the timeless nature of patterns. What's that about?
Right. This is where it gets really deep. The core idea is that the fundamental pattern organizing life come from light, from resonant fields.
Okay.
And unlike matter, which is bound by time change, decay. These fundamental resonances are, in a sense, timeless. Light itself, from its own perspective, experiences no time. It carries information in its patterns. These are like timeless blueprints.
So when does the timeless pattern become tangible?
Yeah.
Time-bound? How does it collapse into the developing child and their interactions?
The split happens when these timeless patterns interact with matter. They collapse into local events, gain mass, entropy, become subject to time.
The moment the pattern locks into the material, like the embryo.
Exactly. That's when it enters causality, our linear time. We see it in embryogenesis, timeless field guides temporal body, in regeneration, rebuilding from a non-material template. Even memory may be encoded in the field structure too.
Which might explain why things like healing or that deep parent-child recognition feel beyond linear time.
Possibly, because they're rooted in these timeless organizing principles.
So if life is timeless geometry made manifest, what are the implications? For development, parental influence?
Huge implications. Memory might be fundamentally non-local in the field patterns. Healing can be guided by these templates. Life is this constant play between timeless principles and time-bound expression.
And the possibilities.
Mapping field patterns, modifying bioelectric signals for healing, using AI to find coherent templates, rethinking evolution as field-guided adaptation, influenced by environment, including parents.
Wow. Okay. Shifting gears slightly, one source talked about the math. Can a non-material field really be encoded in tiny biological structures, like gametes?
Good question. And the science suggests yes. The hypothesis is, can this field blueprint be compressed into sperm and egg?
Seems unlikely, size-wise.
Well, compare DNA storage about 1.5 gigabytes per cell to theoretical field beta density. A single photon can carry multiple quantum bits. A gram of DNA could theoretically hold petabytes.
Okay, that's a huge difference.
So intricate biofield patterning, especially if encoded as quantum coherence or resonance, could feasibly be imprinted in gametes. It provides a mechanism for non-genetic inheritance from parents.
So at conception, what's carrying this field memory from parent to child?
Several potential carriers. The genetic material, obviously basic instructions,
right?
But also the bioelectric state of the gametes charge, ion gradients, a signature. Then those biophoton bursts at fertilization.
The biofield's handshake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A light-based info transfer. Also, coherence transfer, the mother's organized field imprinting coherence onto the zygote, maybe via resonance or entanglement. And finally, the field-guided pattern formation itself, the inherited morphogenetic memory starting things off.
It keeps circling back to DNA not being enough on its own, especially for early development, parental influence.
Precisely. The same DNA makes different cells because the contextual field is different. DNA alone struggles with body symmetry, limb regeneration, embryonic polarity, twin differences, phantom limbs, non-genetic inheritance.
Like potential emotional patterns passed down.
That's one area being explored. The house-building metaphor fits well. DNA is bricks instructions, biosignals are utilities. But the biofield is the architectural blueprint, and that blueprint is heavily influenced by the parental fields.
Which raises that fundamental question. Where did the blueprint, the biofield structure, come from before cells existed? Where did the first nodes originate?
The field-first model of evolution. Really captivating stuff.
Okay.
It proposes the universe started with fields that already had inherent structure, like standing wave patterns. Over time, coherence emerged, forming stable field nodes, protostructures, informational attractors.
Not alive, but organized.
Right. Then, as molecules formed, they self-assembled along these field lines. Chemistry guided by fields.
Not just random reactions.
Exactly. Field patterns promoting stability became templates. DNA eventually evolved as a way to chemically encode and reinforce these successful field patterns.
So DNA is the record keeper, not the ultimate source of form.
In this view, yes. Creating a feedback loop between field and form, leading to the modular, hierarchical biofield nodes, we see nested memory patterns, influenced and transmitted via parents too.
So the biofield prioritizes geometry, function, maybe over specific species.
That's the idea. It could explain why similar developmental patterns appear across diverse life forms. The field geometry might be reused.
Like the flatworm regenerating its head. It retains the field template.
Precisely. The field might predate the specific form. Life might have begun as field patterns, with evolution refining them and DNA backing them up, passed generation to generation via that parent-child link.
Okay, I know some listeners grounded in the traditional view might be skeptical. How do we address that? And get into the real mechanics of biofield memory, inheritance, the parent-child dynamic?
And that skepticism is healthy. It drives science forward. Again, we're not negating molecular biology. But does DNA alone explain the speed, precision, the intelligence of development, especially with that parent-child energetic exchange? Think about fertilization again, standard model. Sperm plus egg, zygote mitosis, gene expression guides differentiation. True, but the coordination problem. How do billions of identical cells organize spatially without a specific gene for every cell's position? That's where the biofield offers an explanation. A non-local informational field guiding form, coherence, memory. Generated by the cells themselves, acting as a real-time network guiding behavior, move here, specialize now, divide, contribute to this form.
And Levin's work is the evidence.
Compelling evidence. Altering development, regeneration, just by tweaking bioelectric gradients, field-based memory and control, beyond DNA.
So how is this memory stored and passed on, especially parent to offspring?
Not chemically like DNA. It's likely encoded in dynamic patterns. Charge patterns across membranes, ion channel organization, microtubule geometry, maybe quantum coherence in water.
Like biological circuits creating a field hologram.
That's a good way to think of it. A non-material template cells contribute to and read from. And during pregnancy, this is key for maternal biofield imprinting.
The mother's field imprints onto the embryos.
Her coherent field overlaps, interacts constantly, imprinting coherence patterns, rhythm, potentially encoding her physiological and emotional state, stress, nutrition, subconscious patterns. Her field gives the initial energetic boot up for the infant structure.
And that continues after birth.
Yes, that heart-brain field syncing between mother and child is crucial for bonding, emotional regulation, imprinting emotional behavioral patterns not solely from genes. DNA provides the machinery. The biofields give spatial order, coordination, and inherited memory shaped significantly by parental influence.
This intergenerational biofield transfer idea, it's revolutionary. It changes how we think about inheritance.
It really does. Think biofield as the operating system, DNA as the hardware driver. The biofield transmits info non-locally, continuously.
Beyond just the static code.
Right. Sperm and egg carry electric potential, structured water, biophotons, not just molecules. There's a field coupling at conception.
And the maternal dominance early on.
The womb as a field container. Her coherent EM fields, her energy state, profoundly influence the fetus's biofield architecture. The biofield is a living geometry, memory, topology, dynamics, instructing and regenerating.
So the revised inheritance model is biofield first.
Biofield guides the developmental pattern, influences epigenetics and DNA expression, which leads to the final form. The field informs the DNA.
And this explains embryonic memory, regeneration, instincts.
Exactly. The mechanisms include maternal field imposition, epigenetic markers passed on, photonic communication, water structuring, bioelectric memory transfer, maybe even field coherence entangling lineages.
Explaining emotional inheritance.
Essentially offering insights there, yes, things that have long puzzled scientists.
You mentioned mapping these fields earlier. How do scientists actually see or measure these invisible fields, make them tangible?
Good point. It might sound abstract, but the methods are very real. Voltage-sensitive dyes, for instance.
Dyes.
Special fluorescent molecules that change brightness or color with changes in electrical potential across a cell membrane. You bathe the tissue, watch under a microscope, and literally see the bioelectric map evolve.
Wow. Visualize it directly.
Then there are electrode arrays, tiny grids measuring millivolt differences between cells, creating detailed spatial voltage maps.
Electrical topography.
Exactly. And techniques like optogenetics or magnetogenetics let scientists use light or magnets to manipulate bioelectric activity and see the results on the field and development.
So it's real electrical activity being measured. Voltage, ion flows, cell connections.
Precisely. Quantifying voltage gradients, ion flows, sodium, potassium, calcium, gap junction connectivity, and tracking how these patterns change over time during development, regeneration, responding to stimuli, including parental environment interaction.
Like the magnetic field analogy. Invisible but measurable effects.
Yes. The biofield organizes complexity, often through attractor states stable pattern cells gravitate towards. It's complex, but trackable with these tools.
This leads to some incredible future possibilities, like immortal cells, or extending lifespan by manipulating these patterns.
That's the speculation, yes. If aging involves declining bioelectric coherence,
Then restoring the field could reverse it.
potentially. Map young versus old cell fields to find the youthful signature. Use bioelectric reprogramming, resetting membrane potential, maybe reactivate regeneration.
Has this been done?
Encouraging results in planaria regeneration, reversing some senescence in lab mammalian cells via bioelectric tweaks. Long-term, maybe methods for self-stabilizing fields and tissues.
Okay, field geometry still feels a bit much. Can you simplify that? How does it relate to parent-child interaction?
Understandable. Think of it simply as the shape and strength of these invisible lines of voltage, charge, signaling.
Like a magnetic field shape.
Exactly. Or a weather map, highs, lows, flows interacting. The biofield has its own dynamic geometry. Parent-child interaction is about how these two fields influence each other's geometry, especially during development. A coherent parental field can stabilize the child's developing field.
But understanding and manipulating that geometry seems incredibly complex.
It is complex, but that's where AI comes in. AI can analyze vast bioelectric data voltage readings, ion channels, connections, build simulations, see how changes propagate.
Pattern recognition for biofields.
Exactly. Recognize healthy versus unhealthy patterns, cancer, developmental issues. AI could help optimize healing by spotting incoherent patterns and suggesting interventions.
Like targeting specific frequencies.
Or manipulating ion channels to restore healthy geometry. Think AI diagnosing heart arrhythmias from complex electrical data. AI can handle the complexity by focusing on overall flow and rules.
This has been absolutely mind-expanding. As we wrap up, what's the core insight for you?
For me, it's realizing the biofield is this fundamental, crucial layer of information and organization. It works with DNA, often guiding it, providing architecture, memory, communication the DNA-only model struggles with, especially in that parent-child context.
And this wider understanding holds such promise, right? For health development.
Huge promise. Regenerative medicine, understanding instincts, early learning, maybe healthy lifespan extension. Embracing this holistic view, including the biofield and parental interaction, opens entirely new scientific avenues, new therapies, better ways to foster healthy development right from the start.
So if our development, what we pass on, isn't just genes, but also these dynamic fields shaped by experience and interaction, what other possibilities exist for understanding our potential, the future?
That's the big question, isn't it? If we're not solely dictated by static code, what else is possible? It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of this amazing aspect of life.
A perfect thought to end on.
Indeed. Consider the implications. Understanding ourselves, health, relationships, potential. If we look beyond the purely material to the biofield's role, I definitely encourage everyone to keep exploring. Maybe future deep dives can look closer at biofields and consciousness or advanced biological engineering based on these ideas.